She was 5 alone in a parking garage, holding a crumpled note and a breath she couldn't afford to lose. "Can you take her instead of me?" she whispered. One decision followed. No sirens, no heroes, only patience, paperwork, and a promise that changed 3 lives forever on a cold night. The underground garage beneath Sterling Tower was all concrete and echoes lit by cold fluorescent lights that made everything feel temporary. Camden Hale, 41, walked alone toward his car, the click of his shoes sounding louder than it should have. Another night finished late. Another reason not to go home. Then he heard it. Not a cry, not a scream. A tiny broken sound like someone holding their breath and failing. Camden stopped. The sound came again, softer this time, tucked behind a concrete pillar where shadows gathered. He turned, heart-tightening, senses sharpening in a way he hadn't felt in years. "Hello," he called, keeping his voice low. No answer, only a small shiver of sound. He approached slowly, palms open, careful not to startle whoever was there. Behind the pillar, curled tight against the wall, sat a little girl. 5 years old, maybe. Too small for the oversized purple beanie slipping over her eyes. Her jacket was thin, her sneakers damp from the cold floor. She clutched a backpack to her chest, like it was the only thing holding her together. Camden knelt several feet away. "Hey there," he said gently. "I'm not going to hurt you." The girl looked up. Her eyes were wide-old with worry no child should carry. She didn't cry. She studied him. In her small fist was a crumpled piece of paper. After a long moment, she lifted it halfway, her voice barely a whisper. "Can you take her instead of me?" The words hit Camden like a sudden drop. His breath caught. "Take who?" he asked softly. The girl swallowed, fingers tightening around the note. "Her," she said again, tapping the paper. "Please." In that quiet garage surrounded by wealth and silence, Camden realized this wasn't a child asking for help. It was a child bargaining, and he knew without question that walking away was no longer an option. The elevator ride up felt longer than usual. Camden stood beside the little girl, careful to give her space. She stayed close to the wall, eyes flicking to the mirrored surface, to the ceiling, to the numbers climbing higher. She said nothing. "What's your name?" Camden asked gently. A pause. Then Ivy. "I'm Camden," he said. "You're safe right now, Ivy." She didn't nod. She didn't argue. She simply held her backpack tighter. When the elevator doors opened, Camden's penthouse greeted them with quiet luxury glass walls, marble counters, a city glowing far below. Ivy stepped inside and froze, as if afraid the room itself might notice her. Camden immediately softened the space. He turned on warm lamps instead of overhead lights, set a blanket on the couch, placed a small cup of apple juice and a plate of crackers on the table, sliding them closer but not too close. "You can sit wherever you want," he said. Ivy chose the very edge of the couch. Camden sat on the floor instead of a chair. Lower. Less imposing. "Do you know where your mom is?" he asked. Ivy looked down. The bright building, with beeping. A hospital. Camden felt it click into place. He glanced at the crumpled note in her hand. "May I see that?" She hesitated, then slowly passed it to him. The handwriting wasn't hers. Too neat. Too adult. "If anyone finds Ivy, please call County Hospital Intake. Name Nora Ellison. No ID, please don't separate us." Camden exhaled slowly. He pulled out his phone, not to call a lawyer, not security, but someone he trusted. "Officer Marisol Vega." "Marisol," he said quietly when she answered. "I have a child here. She's safe. I need help doing this the right way." Ivy watched him closely. "You're not calling to send me away?" she asked. Camden met her eyes. "I'm calling to make sure you get back to your mom." For the first time, Ivy's shoulders lowered just a little. Officer Marisol Vega arrived with calm in her step and warmth in her eyes. She didn't rush. She didn't tower. She knelt in front of Ivy like this was the most important meeting of her day. "Hi, Ivy," Marisol said. "You didn't do anything wrong." Ivy searched her face. "Promise." Marisol nodded. "Promise." Camden felt something in his chest loosen. Marisol read the note, then stepped aside to make a call. Her voice stayed low, professional, reassuring. When she returned, her eyes met Camden's. "She's at County Hospital," Marisol said quietly. "Admitted 4 days ago under a temporary name. She's alive." Ivy heard the word alive. She didn't cry. She exhaled long and shaky, like she'd been holding her breath since forever. Camden knelt closer but still didn't touch her. "We can go see her soon," he said. "Marisol will come with us." Ivy nodded, then frowned. "Will they take me?" "No," Marisol said gently. "Our job is to keep families together when it's safe." Ivy looked between them. "Both of you," Camden nodded. "Both of us." A quiet settled over the room. The city lights blinked outside like distant stars. Camden slipped off his coat and laid it across Ivy's shoulders without wrapping it tight, giving her the choice. She pulled it closer herself. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" Camden asked. "For stopping," Ivy said. The word landed heavier than any contract Camden had ever signed. As they prepared to leave for the hospital, Ivy tugged lightly on his sleeve. "Camden, yes." She held up the note. "You can keep this. Just don't lose it." Camden folded the paper carefully like something sacred. "I won't," he said. "I promise." And in that moment, without realizing it, Camden Hale made the most important commitment of his life, not with words, but with presence. County Hospital felt like a different planet, bright, buzzing, and endlessly awake. The air smelled clean in a way that couldn't hide the tiredness underneath. Ivy walked between Camden and Marisol, but closer to Marisol, her small hand hovering near the officer's sleeve like she wanted to hold on and wasn't sure she was allowed. "You're doing great," Marisol whispered as they approached the intake desk. Camden stayed one step back, letting Marisol speak first. He kept his voice calm, his presence steady, the way you hold a door open without rushing someone through it. A nurse checked the note, then typed quickly. Her expression softened. "Nora Ellison," she said. "She's listed under a temporary name. She's in recovery. 1 visitor at a time, but we'll make an exception for her child." Ivy's eyes widened. "I can see her, yes, sweetheart," the nurse said gently. Camden's throat tightened at the word sweetheart. It sounded like a blanket. They followed a hallway that swallowed sound. Ivy's shoes squeaked faintly on polished floors. At every door they passed, Camden wondered how many lives were changing behind them. When they reached the room, Marisol opened the door slowly. Machines hummed in a soft, steady rhythm. On the bed lay a woman with tired beauty and bruises fading into pale yellow. Her hair was tangled. Her face looked too young to carry that much weight. Ivy froze on the threshold. Then, like a magnet finding home, she crossed the room. "Mom," she whispered, voice breaking on one syllable. Nora's eyelids fluttered. When she saw Ivy, tears gathered instantly, as if her body had been saving them for this exact moment. "Ivy," Nora croaked. "Baby, I'm here." Ivy pressed her forehead against Nora's hand, holding it like proof. Camden stayed near the doorway, not intruding, not claiming space that didn't belong to him. Nora looked up at him, gratitude and confusion tangled together. "Thank you," she mouthed. Camden nodded once, small, quiet, absolute. Nora's voice was thin, but her eyes were alive. She kept staring at Ivy like she couldn't trust reality not to snatch her away again. Ivy climbed carefully onto the edge of the bed, curling close without tugging at wires, as if she'd learned how to be gentle with life. Marisol explained everything in simple, lawful steps. "We're going to document that Ivy was found safe. We're going to create a temporary care plan while you recover. The goal is reunification and stability. Okay. Nora swallowed hard. I don't want her taken. No one's here to punish you, Marisol said. We're here to support you. Camden watched Ivy's face as Marisol spoke. The word support seemed to confuse her. Like it belonged to a world she hadn't visited, Nora reached for Camden's gaze. I don't have family here, she whispered. I was working 2 jobs. I got hit crossing the street. I woke up and couldn't remember my new phone number. I thought her breath caught. I thought Ivy would think I abandoned her. Ivy looked up sharply. You didn't. Nora's eyes filled. Oh, baby. Camden stepped closer, still careful. Nora, he said softly. I don't want to overstep, but Ivy is safe with me tonight if you need rest. Marisol will document it. Everything will be done the right way. Nora hesitated, shame flashing across her face like a shadow. Camden shook his head gently. No shame, just steps. Marisol nodded. That's correct. Temporary, documented, and centered on Ivy's well-being. Ivy's fingers tightened around Nora's hand. I don't want to go far. Camden crouched to Ivy's level. You won't. I'll bring you back tomorrow, and the next day. As many days as it takes. Ivy studied him. You promise? Camden didn't smile big. He didn't soften the moment with humor. He honored it. I promise, he said. Nora's lips trembled. Thank you, she whispered again, louder this time, like she needed Camden to hear it with his whole life. And Camden did. Back at Camden's penthouse, dawn arrived quietly, gray winter light, sliding across marble floors. Camden woke on the couch, stiff-necked, the kind of exhaustion that lived behind his eyes. For a moment he forgot. Then he heard a small sound, paper scraping softly. He sat up and saw Ivy at the dining table using a marker he'd left out. She wasn't making a mess. She was making something careful. A picture. Not a rainbow, not a cartoon, a door. Camden swallowed, couldn't sleep. Ivy shrugged without looking up. I listened. For what? For yelling, she said like it was normal. Sometimes grown-ups yell in the morning. Camden felt something in his chest twist. He kept his voice steady. No yelling here. Ivy paused as if testing the truth of it. Camden went to the kitchen and realized he owned nothing remotely child-friendly. He found cereal poured too fast, spilled half the box, then froze, waiting for Ivy to react. Ivy stared at the spilled cereal, then she glanced at his face. Camden exhaled. I'm not great at this. Ivy blinked. You're trying. That sentence hit harder than praise from a boardroom ever could. He cleaned the mess slowly, deliberately, showing her that mistakes didn't turn into storms. When Ivy finally ate, she did it in quiet bites, eyes flicking up every few seconds. Camden turned on cartoons, low volume. The remote slipped from his hand. Batteries skittered across the floor. Ivy startled, shoulders up, breath trapped. Camden immediately crouched. Hey. It's okay. Nobody's mad. Ivy's eyes watered, confused by kindness that didn't come with a price. Then, without speaking, she reached across the table and touched his fingers just for a second. Like sunlight testing a window, Camden didn't move, didn't grab, didn't cling. He simply let the moment be gentle. And in that small contact, the penthouse stopped feeling like a mausoleum. It started feeling like a beginning. Camden didn't learn Ivy's fears from her words. He learned them from her habits. She asked permission to sit, permission to drink water, permission to use the bathroom. Every question ended with a pause, as if she was bracing for a no that never came. That morning, while Nora rested at the hospital, Ivy followed Camden through the apartment without making a sound. When he stopped, she stopped. When he turned, she nearly bumped into him. You don't have to shadow me, Camden said gently. Ivy shook her head. It's safer. Safer. The word sat heavy in the room. Camden knelt beside her. What makes it safer, Ivy thought for a long moment. If I'm close, I won't be forgotten. Camden swallowed. He kept his voice steady. I won't forget you. Ivy didn't answer. Promises she'd learned were light things. Later, as Camden took a call near the window, Ivy sat at the table with her crayons. She drew carefully, erasing often. When she finished, she slid the paper toward him without meeting his eyes. It showed 3 rules written in uneven letters. Don't ask for more, don't touch nice things, don't make adults tired. Camden stared at the page, chest tightening. Who taught you those? He asked softly. Ivy shrugged. I figured them out. Camden sat beside her. Those rules helped you survive, he said. But they don't belong here. Ivy frowned. Then what are the rules? Camden reached for a marker and wrote below hers, You can ask, you can rest, you can be a kid. Ivy studied the new rules like they were written in another language. You won't change them later, she asked. No, Camden said. If they change, we talk first. That afternoon, Marisol called with updates, forms, filed hospital coordination, confirmed everything moving slowly but correctly. Ivy listened from the doorway. When the call ended, she asked, Are we in trouble? Camden shook his head. No. We're just, being careful. Ivy considered that. Then she did something small but brave. She climbed onto the couch, all the way back, feet tucked under the blanket. Camden smiled quietly. For the first time, Ivy wasn't trying to stay small. The word arrived the way serious things often do, calmly wrapped in professionalism. Review. Marisol explained it over speakerphone so nothing felt hidden. It's not custody, she said. It's not removal. It's a routine housing stability review triggered by a third-party inquiry. Camden leaned against the counter, listening carefully. Ivy sat on the floor, hugging her stuffed bunny eyes flicking between faces. Nora's voice came through the phone, tired but present. Does that mean they'll take Ivy? No, Marisol said firmly. It means they'll look at facts. And facts are on your side. Ivy whispered. I don't like facts. Camden crouched beside her. Facts are like seatbelts, he said again. They're uncomfortable, but they keep you safe. Ivy frowned. Can they forget? Facts don't forget, Camden said. People do. That's why we write them down. That night, Camden spread documents across the table, not in a panic, but with intention. Hospital letters, temporary care approval, Nora's employment history, Ivy's school registration in progress, paperwork as protection. Ivy watched him work. After a while, she pushed a crayon toward him. You forgot something. Camden smiled faintly. What's that? Me, she said. Camden paused. Then he took a blank page and wrote at the top, Ivy Lane, age 5, safe, loved, supported. He slid it into the folder. There, he said. Fixed. Ivy nodded, satisfied. Later, as the wind pressed softly against the windows, Ivy asked the question she'd been carrying all day. If they decide something, do I have to choose again? Camden felt the weight of that word again. He answered carefully. No one should ask you to choose adults. That's our job. Ivy's eyes filled not with fear, but with something like relief. She leaned her head against his arm only for a moment, then pulled back, embarrassed by her own courage. Camden didn't comment. He didn't make it bigger. He simply stayed. Outside, the city kept moving. Inside, a 5-year-old learned that serious words didn't always mean disaster. Sometimes they meant care. The power went out without warning. No drama, no crash, just silence, thick and sudden. Ivy froze. Camden immediately spoke, voice low and calm. It's okay. Just the lights. He grabbed a flashlight from the drawer and turned it on, aiming it at the floor, not her face. I don't like when it's quiet. Dark, Ivy whispered. I know, Camden said. Let's make it less quiet. He turned on his phone and played soft music, instrumental, slow, familiar. The apartment filled with a gentle hum. Ivy's breathing eased inch by inch. Camden sat on the floor near her, not touching, just close enough to be counted. After a moment, Ivy asked, "Do grown-ups get scared?" "All the time," Camden said honestly. "What do you do?" "We look for light," he said, lifting the flashlight slightly. "And we sit with someone." Ivy thought about that. Then she scooted closer, still not touching. The lights flickered back on. Ivy blinked, surprised. "That's it. That's it," Camden said. She looked around then at him. "You didn't leave." Camden met her eyes. "I said I wouldn't." Later, when Camden tucked Ivy into bed, she hesitated at the doorway. "Can you leave the door a little open?" she asked. "Of course." He left it open exactly 2 inches. As he turned away, Ivy's voice stopped him. "Camden, yes. If my mom needs help again, can you still be here?" Camden didn't answer fast. He answered right. "As long as I'm allowed," he said, "and as long as it helps, I'm here." Ivy nodded, satisfied. When Camden reached the hallway, he paused, hand on the wall, feeling the quiet settle. This wasn't a rescue story. It was something harder. It was a story about staying through silence, paperwork, fear, and flickering lights. And Camden understood now the bravest thing an adult can do for a child is not to promise forever, but to keep showing up tomorrow. The morning began like any other, quiet, cautious, almost peaceful. Camden stood at the counter making toast when Ivy appeared in the hallway, already dressed, backpack on, shoes neatly tied. Too neat. Too early. "You're up fast," Camden said, trying to sound normal. Ivy nodded. "I didn't want to be late." "For what for?" "Whatever today is," she answered carefully. Camden frowned. "You're not going anywhere without me telling you first." Ivy's fingers tightened around her backpack straps. "The lady on the phone yesterday said, 'Decision.'" Camden's chest tightened. He remembered the call, Marisol coordinating schedules, mentioning a review meeting later in the week. Nothing final. Nothing sudden. But Ivy heard only one word. "Decision." "Ivy," he said gently, kneeling to her level. "No one is making decisions today." She didn't argue. She just nodded too quickly. Later, as Camden took a call in the other room, Ivy sat alone at the table. She opened her backpack and took out the crumpled note, the old one, the one that started everything. She stared at it for a long time. Then she folded it smaller and smaller. When Camden returned, he found Ivy standing by the door. "I packed," she said quietly. "For what?" in case she replied. "So it's easier." Camden felt his heart drop. "Easier for who?" he asked. "For you," Ivy said, eyes down. "So you don't have to explain." Camden crossed the room slowly. "Explain what?" "That I stayed too long." The sentence broke something open in him. Camden crouched, steadying his breath. "Ivy, listen to me. You didn't overstay. You didn't cause trouble. And you don't need to make anything easier for me." Ivy's eyes shimmered. "But I know how this goes." Camden shook his head. "Not here." He gently took the backpack from her shoulders and set it down. "Today," he said firmly but softly, "you're staying right here. With breakfast, with your drawings, with your place." Ivy studied his face, searching for cracks. Then very slowly, she let herself cry, not loud, not dramatic. Just quiet tears she'd been holding back for days. Camden didn't hush her, didn't rush her. He stayed. And that, more than any promise, began to change what Ivy believed about adults. Nora stood by the hospital window, watching sunlight stretch across the parking lot like it was trying to reach her. She was stronger now. Still sore. Still tired. But present in a way she hadn't been since the accident. When Marisol arrived with the caseworker, Nora didn't sit back down. She stood. "I want to speak for myself today," Nora said calmly. The caseworker nodded, surprised but approving. Nora's voice trembled at first, then steadied. She talked about her job, her schedule, the day of the accident, the days she lost, the panic of waking up without a phone, without memory, without her child. I'm not perfect, Nora said, but I'm consistent, and I'm learning to ask for help. She paused, swallowing. My daughter shouldn't have to earn safety by being brave. Marisol watched quietly, respect in her eyes. Later that afternoon, Nora called Camden. Ivy thinks she's in the way, Nora said softly. Camden closed his eyes. I know. She learned that from watching me struggle, Nora continued. From seeing doors close. Camden didn't rush to comfort. He listened. I want to tell her something, Nora said. But I need you there. That evening, Camden brought Ivy to the hospital. Ivy walked slowly this time, hesitant, unsure if hospitals still meant separation. Nora opened her arms carefully. Ivy crawled into them, curling like she was 5 again instead of 50 inside. Nora spoke gently, each word chosen with care. Ivy, when you stay with Camden, it's not because I can't take care of you. It's because adults help each other. Ivy's voice was small. So I'm not a problem, Nora held her face. You are the reason I get better. Ivy's eyes filled. I don't have to go away, no, Nora said firmly. You get to stay. Camden watched from the chair, heart full and heavy. This wasn't a rescue. This was a mother reclaiming her place. The review meeting took place in a plain room with beige walls and a round table. No judge, no audience, just adults and paperwork. Camden sat beside Nora, not in front of her. Ivy was not present as appropriate. She was at school orientation with a counselor coloring stars. The caseworker began calmly. We're here to assess stability and continuity of care. Nora nodded. Camden listened. Documents were reviewed, timelines clarified, support systems named. Then the question came, gentle but heavy. Mr. Hale, the caseworker said, what is your role moving forward? Camden took a breath. I'm temporary support. I don't replace Ivy's mother. I supplement what the system allows, transportation stability supervision until Nora is fully recovered. And after that, Camden didn't hesitate. I stepped back, responsibly. The room went quiet, not tense, respectful. Nora reached for Camden's hand, not clutching, just acknowledging. The caseworker nodded. That's appropriate. Marisol smiled faintly. When the meeting ended, the outcome was clear. No removal. No separation. Continued support. Clear boundaries. Outside, Camden exhaled for the first time in hours. Back at the apartment, Ivy was waiting, swinging her legs on the couch. Well, she asked. Camden knelt. You stay. Ivy blinked, like, for real, he said. She didn't jump, didn't cheer. She simply leaned forward and rested her forehead against his shoulder just for a second. Then she sat back up, embarrassed. Okay, she said. I was just checking. Camden smiled, tears burning behind his eyes, because he understood now the real victory wasn't winning a meeting. It was watching a child slowly believe she didn't have to disappear to be loved. The coastal house didn't feel like home at first. It was too quiet in the mornings, too open in the afternoons. The sound of the ocean slipped through the windows like a secret no one had taught Ivy how to keep yet. She walked carefully, as if the floor might change its mind and disappear beneath her feet. Camden noticed the way she memorized exits. Not fear, exactly preparation. He didn't comment on it. He simply made the house predictable. Breakfast at the same time. Cartoons on low volume. Shoes always by the door, never moved without asking. Nora, still regaining strength, spent long hours on the sunlit porch, wrapped in a sweater, watching Ivy draw on the floor beside her. Ivy kept glancing up, checking that Nora was still there. Always there. One afternoon, Camden brought home a small wooden shelf. Nothing expensive, a little crooked. What's that? Ivy asked. For you, Camden said. If you want it. Ivy frowned. For what? For things that matter. They assembled it together on the living room floor. Camden read instructions wrong. Ivy corrected him with serious authority. When the shelf finally stood upright, Ivy touched it carefully, as if it might vanish. "What do I put on it?" she asked. "Whatever you choose." Ivy thought hard. Then she placed 3 things on the shelf: her stuffed bunny, the lighthouse drawing, the smooth heart-shaped stone. Camden watched quietly. That night, Ivy stood in her doorway rubbing her eyes. "Can you check under the bed?" she asked. Camden knelt, looked, then sat back on his heels. "All clear," she hesitated. "Can you sit until I sleep?" He didn't answer right away. He didn't want to promise something that felt too big. "I can sit for a bit," he said honestly. Ivy nodded, satisfied. Camden sat in the chair by the door phone, face down, listening to the ocean breathe. Ivy turned onto her side, bunny tucked under her chin. After a while, she whispered, "You know, if you want to leave, you can." Camden's chest tightened. "I know," he said, "but I don't want to." Silence settled, not heavy, not sharp, just real. And as Ivy's breathing slowed, Camden realized the house was changing too. It was learning new sounds, new names. It was learning what it meant to stay. Healing didn't arrive all at once for Nora. It came in small victories: standing without dizziness, walking to the mailbox alone, cooking a simple meal without needing to sit down. Camden never applauded these moments. He respected them. One morning, Nora insisted on making breakfast. Camden hovered by the counter, unsure whether to intervene. "I've got this," Nora said gently. "Let me try." The pancakes came out uneven. Ivy studied them seriously. "They're brave pancakes," Ivy decided. Nora laughed, a real laugh, rusty but warm. After breakfast, Nora sat Ivy down at the table. "I need to tell you something," Nora said. Ivy stiffened slightly. Nora took her daughter's hands. "When I got hurt, I was scared. I was scared you'd think I didn't come back because I didn't want to." Ivy looked up. "I thought maybe you were too tired." Nora swallowed. "I was tired, but not of you. Never of you." Ivy's eyes filled, and when Camden helped us, Nora continued, "It didn't mean I was replaced. It meant I had help," Ivy whispered. "Like when I can't reach something and you lift me." Nora smiled through tears. Exactly like that. Later that day, Nora walked with Camden along the beach. Slow steps, wine tugging at her hair. "I don't know how to thank you," Nora said. Camden shook his head. "You don't owe me anything." Nora stopped walking. "You gave my daughter time to be a child again." Camden looked out at the water. "She gave me something too." That evening, Ivy brought Nora a picture she'd drawn. It showed 3 figures standing in a circle, not holding hands, just close. Above them, in crooked letters, "We help each other." Nora pressed the picture to her chest. That night, Ivy didn't ask Camden to sit by the door. She slept through the night. And in the morning when she woke, the first thing she did wasn't check who was still there. She yawned. That small, ordinary act felt like a miracle. The first day of kindergarten arrived with clean sneakers and a backpack that no longer looked heavier than Ivy. The school stood 2 blocks away, bright murals painted along the fence. Children's voices floated through the air like birdsong. Ivy held Nora's hand on one side and Camden's sleeve on the other. At the gate, she stopped. "You'll come back?" she asked. Nora knelt. "At the end of the day?" Camden nodded. "Right here." Ivy searched their faces, then she did something neither of them expected. She let go. She ran ahead. Not far. Just enough to prove she could. Camden felt his breath catch not fear, but awe. Inside the classroom, Ivy found a seat near the window. She turned once more to check. They were still there. Later, Camden and Nora sat on a bench outside the school, quiet. "I didn't know it could feel like this," Nora said. "Like what Camden asked. Like I can breathe without counting." When school ended, Ivy burst through the gate waving a paper star. "I made this," she said. It's for both of you. At home, Ivy added the star to her shelf. Then she turned to Camden, serious again. You're not my dad. Camden nodded. I know, but you're my Camden. Camden felt tears sting his eyes. I'm honored. That night, Ivy wrote something new on a piece of paper. She folded it carefully and handed it to Camden. He opened it. I don't have to trade anyone anymore. Camden closed his eyes. Outside, the ocean rolled in steady waves. Inside, a child who once bargained for safety slept, knowing she no longer had to disappear to be loved. And for Camden Hale, that truth was richer than anything he had ever owned. It started with a sentence that wasn't even true. Camden noticed it on his phone while he stood at the sink rinsing a coffee mug, the morning sun pouring through the kitchen window like honey. Ivy was at the table drawing a lighthouse with careful, slow strokes. Nora was on the porch doing her rehab exercises with a quiet kind of determination. A notification flashed. Local business leader takes in child questions raised. Camden's stomach dropped, not because he feared consequences for himself, but because he understood how words could bend into weapons when people didn't know the full story. He didn't read it out loud. He didn't let Ivy see his face change. He set his phone down and breathed like Marisol taught him, steady, grounded, present. Then Ivy looked up anyway. Your eyes got loud, she said, as if that was a normal thing to notice. Camden forced a gentle smile. Just work stuff. Ivy narrowed her eyes. Work stuff is always loud. Camden huffed a quiet laugh, grateful for the way she could still be 5. You're not wrong. But the noise didn't stay small. By noon, Camden had 3 missed calls from his COO, Tessa Grant, and an email from the board's legal counsel, a request for clarification filled with careful phrases that sounded polite but felt sharp. Reputational risk, boundary concerns, public misunderstanding, potential for mischaracterization. Camden stepped outside to the porch and sat near Nora without intruding into her space. The ocean wind moved her hair softly. She looked up and saw the tension in his jaw. What is it? Nora asked. Camden didn't sugarcoat it. A local blog ran a story. They don't have details. They're guessing. And the board is nervous. Nora's shoulders tightened. About Ivy, about me, Camden said quickly. About optics, about headlines, about anything they can't control. Nora stared at the horizon for a long moment, then whispered, I hate this. I hate that kindness becomes a rumor. Camden nodded. Me too. Inside, Ivy hummed to herself while coloring. She didn't know what a blog was. She didn't know what optics meant. She knew only the truth that mattered, her shelf, her school, her mom's steady presence, Camden's quiet staying. Marisol arrived late afternoon, calm as ever, like she carried stillness in her pockets. I saw it, she said, setting her phone down. It's not accurate, but we handle this with facts. Camden's voice was low. How do we keep Ivy protected from noise? Marisol leaned forward. We reduce exposure, we document every step. And you, Camden, you do not react like a scared man. You react like a responsible one. Nora swallowed. Could this affect the care plan? Marisol shook her head. Not if we do what we've been doing. We keep everything legal, transparent, and child-centered. Camden exhaled. Then Ivy appeared in the doorway holding her lighthouse drawing like a flag. Marisol, she said, delighted. I made you something. Marisol's face softened instantly. She crouched, receiving the drawing with reverence like it was a medal. It's beautiful, she said. You know what this is, a lighthouse, Ivy said proudly. And what do lighthouses do? Marisol asked. Ivy looked at Camden, then Nora, then back to Marisol. They don't chase anyone, she said carefully. They just stay bright. Marisol's eyes glistened. That's right. That night, Camden sat at his desk and wrote one clear statement. No drama, no defensiveness, just truth. Ivy was found safe. Authorities were contacted immediately. Reunification with her mother was the goal and remains the plan. All care steps are documented and guided by professionals. He sent it to legal counsel to Tessa to the board. Then he turned his phone off. He walked to Ivy's doorway. She was in bed, bunny tucked under her chin, eyes half open. "You're thinking," Ivy whispered. Camden sat in the chair, voice gentle. "Just adult stuff." Ivy blinked slowly. "Adult stuff doesn't get to pick me up and move me right." The question was so small, so terrifyingly wise. Camden chose his words like they were glass. "No," he said. "Adults don't get to move you like furniture. You're a person, and we do things the right way." Ivy's eyelids fluttered. "Okay." Camden stayed until her breathing softened. Outside, the ocean kept its rhythm. Inside a man with everything learned, the hardest thing to protect wasn't a reputation. It was a child's sense of safety. And he would protect it the only way that mattered, not with loud declarations, but with steady, lawful love. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m., and Camden hadn't slept. Not because he was afraid of losing power. He'd lost things before money, marriage, momentum. Those losses had hurt, but they hadn't hollowed him out. This was different. This was the fear of being misunderstood in a way that could ripple outward and touch Ivy's life. He arrived in the city wearing a plain suit, no flash, no show. The boardroom felt like an old skin glass, walls, polished table, bottled water, lined up like props in a play Camden no longer wanted to perform. Tessa was there early, arms crossed, eyes tired. "Cam," she said quietly, "you could have told me sooner." "I did what was appropriate," Camden replied. "I didn't want this to become a spectacle." Tessa sighed. "Well, it is now." The meeting began with polite words that didn't feel polite. One director cleared his throat. "We're concerned about public perception." Another added, "This could be misconstrued." Camden listened without interrupting. He let them speak until the room ran out of fear, disguised as strategy. Then he placed a folder on the table. Not a pitch deck, not revenue projections, just documentation. He spoke calmly. "A child was found alone in a private garage. I contacted law enforcement support immediately. I coordinated with hospital intake. I followed child welfare guidance. The mother is recovering. The plan is reunification." "That's it," a director frowned. "But why are you so involved?" Camden didn't bristle. He didn't perform outrage. He answered with something rarer than confidence, clarity. "Because I was there," he said. "Because I'm capable of helping responsibly, and because it was the right thing to do." The legal counsel slid a paper forward. "We recommend you cease direct involvement to reduce exposure." Camden stared at the page. Cease involvement. The words felt like someone trying to erase a human story with a legal eraser. He inhaled slowly. Then he said, "I understand the concern. So here's what I'll do." The room leaned in. "I'll step back publicly," Camden said. "I will not appear in photos or publicity tied to this situation. I will not be named in any release. All support will go through approved channels, Marisol, the case manager, and Nora's consent. No secrecy, no drama, just boundaries." Tessa's eyes softened slightly. "That's responsible," Camden nodded. "And I will also take a leave from CEO duties for 2 weeks. Interim leadership will be Tessa." A murmur moved through the room. That was the sacrifice. Not money, not a check, time, priority, identity. One director blinked. "You're stepping away during a critical quarter." Camden's voice didn't change. "A child's stability is also critical." Tessa looked at him like she was seeing him for the first time. "Are you sure?" Camden thought of Ivy's question, "Adults don't get to pick me up and move me right?" He answered the board. "I'm sure." The meeting ended with reluctant acceptance. It wasn't a standing ovation. It wasn't a Hollywood moment. It was a man choosing a quieter kind of courage. When Camden returned to the coast that afternoon, He found Ivy on the porch steps waiting with her school backpack beside her feet. Nora stood behind Ivy, hand resting lightly on her shoulder. Ivy's eyes flicked to Camden's face like she was scanning for changes. Camden sat down on the step, keeping his voice warm. "Hey, Lighthouse." Ivy frowned. "Did you go to the loud room?" Camden smiled. "Yeah." Ivy hugged her bunny tight. "Did they say you can't help?" Camden looked at Nora first, respectful checking. Nora nodded slightly, trusting him to answer. Camden turned back to Ivy. "They said I need to be careful. So I'm being careful." Ivy's brow furrowed. "What does that mean?" "It means," Camden said softly, "I'm going to be around in the ways that are best for you. Quiet ways. Safe ways." Ivy stared at him, trying to translate adult language into child truth. Then she asked the real question, simple and pure. "Are you leaving?" Camden's chest tightened. He didn't promise forever like a fairy tale. He promised something stronger, consistency with boundaries. "I'm not disappearing," he said. "I'm still here. I'm just stepping back from the spotlight." Ivy blinked. "What's a spotlight?" Camden chuckled. "It's when people stare." Ivy made a face. "I don't like when people stare." "Me neither," Camden said. Ivy scooted closer and rested her head against Nora's side, eyes still on Camden. "Okay," she whispered. "As long as you don't disappear." Camden nodded once. "I won't." That night, Camden didn't sit in Ivy's doorway. He didn't need to. Ivy fell asleep with the door open 2 inches, still her rule. But she didn't ask for it. Camden understood what that meant. Trust wasn't a dramatic leap. It was a slow release. And he had earned another millimeter. The season shifted quietly. Not with fireworks. With routines. Nora's rehab appointments became less frequent. Her steps grew steadier. Her smile arrived faster. The cane she used at first moved from necessary to just in case, then to leaning against the wall like an old story she didn't have to live in every day. Ivy's world expanded in gentle circles, school neighbors, the small library near the beach, with beanbag chairs and story time. She made a friend named Lena who wore pink glasses and laughed too loudly, which Ivy secretly adored. Camden's life shrank in the best way. Less boardroom, more porch, less noise, more meaning. One Saturday, Nora hosted a tiny gathering, nothing fancy. Just cinnamon rolls and coffee on mismatched plates. Marisol came by in jeans instead of uniform, her dog wagging its tail like it owned the world. Ivy set out napkins with serious concentration, like hospitality was a sacred job. She placed one napkin slightly crooked, then straightened it with both hands. Camden watched her and felt a quiet ache. This child used to pack a backpack in case. Now she arranged napkins because she expected people to stay. That afternoon, Ivy asked Camden something unexpected while they worked on a small garden box in the yard. "Do you have a mom?" she asked. Camden's hands paused on the soil. "I did. She passed away when I was younger." Ivy considered this, then asked, "Did you have someone who didn't disappear?" Camden swallowed. "Not like you do." Ivy nodded as if that explained everything. She patted the dirt into place, then said, "You can borrow ours." Camden's eyes burned. Nora, hearing from the porch, didn't correct Ivy. She didn't romanticize it either. She simply smiled, tired and real and grateful. Later, Camden received an email from Tessa. Board tension easing. Statement worked. Media moved on. Also, you did the right thing. Camden stared at the message and realized the loud world could shift its attention elsewhere. But Ivy's world didn't work like that. In Ivy's world, what mattered was whether the adults were still there at bedtime. That night, Ivy brought Camden a piece of paper folded neatly into a square. He opened it carefully, expecting another drawing. Instead, it was writing block letters, wobbly but proud rules for our house. No one gets left behind. We ask before we hug. We say sorry when we're wrong. We tell the truth quietly. We keep the door 2 inches open. Camden laughed softly, tears threatening. Nora read over his shoulder and covered her mouth, eyes shining. Marisol, sitting nearby, whispered, "That's a pretty strong constitution." Ivy beamed. "It's the rules." Camden crouched to Ivy's level. "These are good rules." Ivy pointed at number 5. "That one is mine." Camden nodded solemnly. "Of course it is." Later, after Ivy went to bed, Nora stepped onto the porch with 2 mugs of tea. She handed one to Camden. For a while they watched the ocean in silence. The water was dark, but the horizon held a thin line of moonlight, steady, patient, refusing to disappear. Nora spoke softly. "I used to think I had to do everything alone to prove I deserved my daughter." Camden looked down at the heart-shaped stone still in his pocket, thumb rubbing the smooth edge. "I used to think being needed was a burden." Nora smiled faintly, and now Camden exhaled. "Now I think being needed is a gift when it's done right." Nora nodded. "We did it right." Camden's voice dropped to a whisper. "We're still doing it right." Inside, Ivy slept with her bunny, the door not fully closed, 2 inches open, a small lighthouse of air and light. Not because she feared the dark, because it reminded her of the first night an adult stayed. And for Camden Hale, the truest kind of success wasn't measured in stock value or headlines. It was measured in a 5-year-old's calm breathing, in a mother's steady steps, in a home where nobody had to bargain for love ever again. Autumn arrived without asking permission. The mornings grew cooler. Leaves gathered along the edges of the sidewalk like small, careful crowds. Ivy learned to zip her jacket by herself, tongue tucked between her teeth in concentration. She no longer looked back every 3 steps on the walk to school, but she still checked once. Just once. That afternoon, Camden picked her up early. Nora had a meeting at the community center, her first official day as a peer support coordinator. She was nervous, but her eyes shone with something new. Purpose. In the car, Ivy kicked her feet gently against the seat. "Camden," she asked. "Yes, do people ever stop needing help?" Camden thought for a moment. "I don't think so. I think they just need different kinds." Ivy nodded like that made sense. Then she asked the question she'd clearly been saving. "When you helped me, did you have to choose?" Camden glanced at her in the mirror. "Choose what between your old life and this one?" The road stretched ahead, quiet and honest. "Yes," Camden said finally. "I did." Ivy's brow furrowed. Was it hard? Camden smiled faintly. It was scary, but it was also clear. Clear like the lighthouse Ivy asked, exactly like that. Ivy was quiet for a long time. When they reached the house, she followed him inside, set her backpack down, then climbed onto the couch and curled up beside him. "Can I ask one more thing?" she said softly. "Always." She leaned her head against his arm longer this time, not just a test. "If you didn't help me, would you still be lonely?" The question landed gently and completely. Camden didn't rush it away. "I think I would have stayed busy," he said. "But lonely, yes." Ivy lifted her head and looked at him with 5-year-old seriousness. "Then maybe we helped each other." Camden felt tears burn behind his eyes. He nodded once. "Maybe we did." Outside, the wind moved through the trees. Inside, the house held its warmth. When Nora came home later, tired but smiling, Ivy ran to her. "She did great," Camden said. Nora hugged Ivy tight. "We both did." Ivy looked between them, satisfied. That night, Ivy added one more line to her house rules and taped it carefully to the fridge. 6. We help each other on purpose. Camden read it in the quiet kitchen and understood something final. Some families are not found at birth. They are built slowly, carefully, by choosing not to walk away. The world moved on. News cycles found louder stories. The blog post faded into digital dust. Camden's company stabilized under Tessa's steady leadership, and when he returned full-time, He did so differently, leaving earlier, listening longer, measuring success by something other than applause. Nora's work grew too. She helped women fill out forms, rehearse conversations, sit with fear without being swallowed by it. Sometimes she came home exhausted. Sometimes she came home proud. Ivy noticed everything. One evening, while Camden fixed a loose porch board, Ivy sat beside him with a clipboard she'd made out of cardboard. "I'm doing a check," she announced. "A check?" Camden asked. She nodded. "To make sure things are okay." She looked around seriously. "Mom, okay," Nora said, smiling. "Camden, okay." The house. Camden glanced around, still standing. Ivy nodded, satisfied, and made a check mark. Later, as they ate dinner, simple pasta, nothing fancy, Ivy asked, "Are we normal?" Nora laughed softly. "What do you think normal is?" Ivy considered. "People who eat together and don't yell." Camden smiled. "Then yes, we're doing great." That night, Ivy had a nightmare, not loud, not dramatic. Just a whimper that slipped out before she could stop it. Nora was there first, sitting on the bed, brushing Ivy's hair back. Camden stood in the doorway waiting to be invited. Ivy looked at him and nodded. Camden sat on the edge of the bed, not crowding. "I dreamed I was back in the garage," Ivy whispered. But this time, the lights didn't turn on. Camden kept his voice low. "What happened then?" Ivy swallowed. "Then I remembered the rules." Nora smiled gently. "Which one?" Ivy whispered. "No one gets left behind." She reached out, taking Nora's hand with one hand, Camden's sleeve with the other. The dream passed. Later, when Ivy was asleep again, Nora stood with Camden in the hallway. "She's healing," Nora said softly. "But it doesn't mean the past disappears." Camden nodded. "I know." Nora looked at him. "Thank you for never trying to be more than what she needed." Camden answered honestly. "She taught me how." In the quiet, Camden realized something unexpected. This life, quiet dinners, small fears, slow trust, would never make headlines. And that was exactly why it mattered. Winter came gently that year. No storms, just crisp mornings and soft light. Ivy learned to tie her scarf. Nora baked cinnamon rolls on Sundays. Camden kept the heart-shaped stone in his coat pocket, smooth from habit. One evening, Ivy sat at the table with a piece of paper tongue tucked out in concentration. She folded it carefully, then unfolded it again, rewriting something with great care. She carried it to Camden. "For you," she said. Camden opened it slowly. The handwriting was steadier now. "If anyone ever feels alone, tell them this. You don't have to trade yourself to stay." Camden closed his eyes. Nora read over his shoulder and pressed her hand to her chest. "Where did you learn that?" Nora asked softly. Ivy shrugged. "From us." That night, after Ivy was tucked in, door 2 inches open, just because Camden stood by the window watching the lights along the coast blink patiently. Nora joined him. "She's going to be okay," Nora said. "Not a hope, a truth." Camden nodded. "So are we." They didn't define what we meant. They didn't need to. In the other room, Ivy slept peacefully, Bunny tucked under her arm, breathing slow and steady. No bargaining. No packing just in case. Just rest. Camden thought back to the first night, to a garage full of echoes and a child holding a note like a shield. "Can you take her instead of me?" He realized how far that question had traveled. From fear to trust to belonging. The house creaked softly as it settled for the night. And in that quiet, ordinary moment, Camden Hale understood the truest ending of the story. Not a rescue, not a miracle. Just 3 people who chose again and again to stay. And for the first time in his life, he didn't wonder what came next. Because right here was enough. Did this story move your soul? Share your feelings in the comments and rate it from 1 to 10. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Then tap the bell icon so you never miss a new story. Click the end screen to watch another heartfelt video. See you in the next story.